If you're considering relocating to Austin, Texas, chances are you're probably hearing things like, we like to keep it weird here, or there's an emerging tech scene here now, or oh my goodness, it's getting so expensive by the day to live in Austin, Texas. And yes, all of those things are true, but in this video, we are going to talk about the things that you don't really hear about Austin, Texas. Probably things that just are not natural to bring up. And hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have helped you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not Austin, Texas is right for you. Stay tuned. Hey again, everybody. This is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. On this channel, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. We also love the reach outs we get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So keep them coming. Don't hesitate. Whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team. Whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video, we are talking about what they really won't tell you about living in Austin, Texas. And to start out, honestly, I just thought we would go over some miscellaneous little things that are not necessarily earth-shattering, but can still give you a good enough idea of what it might be like to live here. So for starters, let's get something a little bit lighthearted out of the way first, and that would be the subject of weed, also known as marijuana, also known as cannabis, whatever you want to call it these days. Reminder, Austin, Texas, as progressive and liberal as it might be, is still in the state of Texas. And no, I am not speaking strictly only to those who like to use it recreationally and get high. I'm more so speaking to the people who might depend or rely on cannabis for whatever ailments they may have in their day-to-day lives. And so, if you are someone who might be dealing with anxiety or dealing with depression, or in my older brother's case, severe epilepsy and autism, and you depend on it to some extent, it is more difficult to get in the state of Texas. I will not say it's impossible to get, but if you're using, say, THC-based medication or tinctures or things like that that are not just all about smoking, it's certainly not going to be as accessible, say, as Colorado or California for that matter. So that's something to keep in mind. There are going to be more hurdles, more obstacles when trying to get a hold of it in a medicinal type of way. Don't get me wrong, we have those Delta 8 shops where they have like CBD dog treats and gummy worms and stuff like that, yes, but it might not quite be what you're looking for if that is something that you use to function in day-to-day life. In addition to the subject of weed, we also have weird weather. So of course, I'm sure all of you know by now that yes, here in not just Austin, Texas, but the South, we have extreme heat. So I will not really get in depth with that. All you have to know is that it's like opening the oven when you're baking cookies for about 3 to 4 months of the year. What I mean by weird weather is, what's the best way to put it? It is a bit random. And what I mean by that is there's a saying in Austin, Texas that goes, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute, because it is so sporadic, right? I mean, just in the month of December, we had this warm front where it was like 82 degrees. And then just like a day or two after that, it drops to like the low 50s. And then you don't know how to dress. You might go to work one day wearing a hoodie and using your seat warmers, and then it rains and the cool front comes while you're in the office, and then you get home and you're sweating because all of a sudden it's like 78 degrees and sunny when in the morning it was chilly and rainy and cold and miserable. So that is something at all times of the year that you are going to experience in Austin, Texas. I don't know what it is specifically about Austin, because I'm not saying Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio, for example, are devoid of that, but in my experience and other people's experiences, it happens to be that way, particularly in Austin, where most days you just don't know how the hell to dress because the weather has a mind of its own. So keep that in mind. In addition to the weed and the weird weather, let's talk about Teslas and Californians. So this is something that you'll find, especially in the past 2 or 3 years in Austin, Texas, and especially on certain freeways or highways. It's kind of weird how that statistically happens, but you are going to see more Teslas than you've ever seen in your life, unless perhaps you're coming from the Bay Area, which many of our clients have. But if you're coming from anywhere else, be prepared. Let's say you're getting on Mopac. Mopac is one of the most used freeways, highways, toll roads in the greater Austin area to get around, right? That is unofficially known as the Tesla freeway, because pretty much every car you'll see is a Tesla, and so many of them are going to have California plates. And that brings me to the subject of Californians. Let's put aside the Teslas for a minute. In my business, in this business, helping people relocate to Austin, Texas, a vast majority of our clients are Californian. That is just how it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've helped people from Canada. We've helped people from Europe. We've helped people from New York, Washington State, Oregon. You know, there's a lot more than just California, but I mean, if we're doing mathematics and statistics, I would say a high percentage of them are from California, and that's just how it is here. So you're going to find, if you're looking for, you know, a Southern Texan culture, you might find that a bit stronger in a city like Dallas or San Antonio or Houston that have stronger Texan roots, because as it currently stands, Austin, Texas, yes, it still maintains its Texan flavor and its Texan culture and its roots, don't get me wrong, but it's so touristy now, it's so commercialized now, and it's been consistently one of the top hotspots for relocation in the country. So what you're finding is a lot more people that are just not from here, and most of them are going to be from California. So that's something to keep in mind as well if you just try to envision what life in Austin, Texas is like. And last of these little miscellaneous things that kind of paint your picture, we have traffic and construction, and this is something I won't dive super into because it's pretty much, you know, it's self-explanatory. Austin, Texas was first and foremost just a small college town. It was not designed to be like a Houston or a Dallas or even a San Antonio. And then it grew in popularity and population quicker than the city's infrastructure could keep up with. And then it really took off with people relocating here, especially around COVID. And so what do you have? You have horrible traffic because of all the people who are coming to this relatively small city. And then the construction to fix the traffic makes the traffic worse. And then when the traffic gets worse because of the construction, they do more construction to fix the traffic. And it never ends, and it will probably never end. It could be the year 2050 and they're still doing construction on 183 or whatever that might look like. So those are little things that might not be deal breakers necessarily or earth shattering. However, yeah, if you're trying to get a vibe or a feel for Austin, Texas, and you haven't been able to come and visit yourself or take a tour with our team, just little things like that could give you a decent idea. Moving right along regarding what they just won't tell you about living in Austin, Texas, in spite of how expensive it's getting, you do have affordable suburbs. And look, am I a real estate agent? Yes. Is it self-serving for me to talk about affordable suburbs? Yes. Is it also true that we have affordable suburbs here and that not a lot of people know that, surprisingly? Also, yes. And that's the thing, you know, when you're looking at Austin proper, or the city of Austin, Texas, you can see that median home price. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's like, holy crap, it is getting way too expensive. People are getting priced out. I'm better off in Houston, better off in Dallas, better off in San Antonio. And honestly, I might be a real estate agent, but that is true. You might be better off. Austin, Texas is getting so much more expensive to live in, and it's going to be that way probably forever. And it's just going to, you know, get momentum and get worse, right? Don't get me wrong, we have significantly lower home prices now than we had in the past 6, 9, 12 months because the interest rates are scaring so many people, and so they're listing their houses, but now they don't have the power they used to, so the house prices are just dropping. Or if you're looking at new construction homes, they're offering all these incentives and discounts just to sell their homes because they got pretty cocky for a second. Anyone's going to buy our house, we can name our price. Now, with this weird market that we're in, buyers have so much more power. So yes, it is more expensive, but the prices are consistently dropping. But in addition to that, what I'm getting at with the affordable suburbs is people don't really think about the surrounding areas necessarily right off the top of their heads. They think about Austin proper, and I don't blame you because you might want to be in Austin proper. However, if you're someone like a lot of our clients who are most likely coming here with a family and they're looking at places within 15 to maybe 45 minutes of downtown Austin, then all of a sudden these options open up and you have places like Manor, Texas, or Hutto, Texas, or Kyle, Texas, or Buda, Texas, or Round Rock, Texas, or Georgetown, Texas. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to have places that are going to be more popular suburbs. So your Leanders, your Round Rocks, your Georgetowns, those are going to be closer to around $500,000, which is, I guess, relatively affordable when compared to the median home price in Austin proper, which is like over $600,000. But when you're looking at other places, as mentioned, San Marcos, Texas, or Kyle, or Vito, or Hutto, places like that are going to be oftentimes in the mid to high threes or into low to mid fours, which I realize is not $100,000 or $200,000 cheap. No, of course not. It's still Austin proper, or Austin, greater Austin area. It's going to reflect that. However, a lot of people have this misconception that if they're moving to Austin, Texas, they just can't afford it. And that's not true. You can live close enough to the city, even in Pflugerville, for example, be 20 minutes away, and you got a house in the 400s instead of the high fives. So that's something to keep in mind. Just a misconception that if you're talking to people about Austin, Texas, they're not going to think to say, oh, but you know what? It's actually cheaper than you think in a lot of places. Most of them are just going to say, oh my God, it's getting so expensive, and they're technically correct, but there's more to the story. Up next regarding Austin, Texas, we have the subject of school districts. And I just can't imagine if you're chatting with someone about possibly moving to Austin, Texas, and they'll say something like, man, they got a bitchin' art scene. They've got all kinds of fun things to do, breweries, it's getting all tech scene now. It's getting unaffordable. But you know what you really want to hear about are those school districts. I just can't imagine that that's something that is really talked about regarding Austin, Texas. And yet, we have some of the greatest school districts that people literally come here for. A majority of our clients who come with their families are coming specifically for those school districts that are public school. And that's the thing, in my time, if you want to say that, I've since learned that public schools are not the same everywhere. I've heard horror stories of broken ACs, or how they still use chalkboards, or how there's a homeless man in the stairway, like stuff like that. In the greater Austin area, our schools are public, yes, but they're kind of like cream of the crop public, where they're not quite private schools. You're not wearing a uniform or anything, but they are top tier. And so a lot of people see that, recognize that, tour the schools, and they decide that that's where they want their kids to go. And so what we've seen in the greater Austin area are suburbs that are actually developed around the schools. If you're talking about Leander, Texas, if you're talking about Round Rock, Texas, or Cedar Park, Texas. And then you've also got like the Lake Travis Independent School District, which has steadily been climbing atop the public school rankings according to websites like niche.com, for example. And so what you're going to find is a great amount of resources. A lot of these schools are going to have their own football stadiums comparable to college stadiums. My high school had an auditorium. You get all of these boosters and resources and things like that, athletic programs that I took for granted, that I thought was normal until I got older and heard other people's experiences of when they went to school. And mind you, I did not grow up in an area that was wealthy whatsoever. Middle class, lower middle class. And still, you feel like you're upper class by going to these established, reputable, prestigious school districts. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're not coming by yourself or with a partner, if you're coming either to start a family or you have a family, rest assured you do have quite a number of very respectable school districts in the greater Austin area. Keeping it moving, let's talk about size. And this is an interesting one. So when we're talking about Austin, Texas, the city, it is a fairly small city. If you're talking about from one end to the other, how long it might take you to go, if you're talking about walkability, it's not like this metropolis, right? However, the greater Austin area, as a default of being in the gigantic state of Texas, is going to be deceivingly large. And so what this can look like in a good and a bad way, for example, in a bad case, that can mean longer drive times. That could mean just having things, if you need to get from point A to point B to point C, it's not going to be an urban hop and a skip away if you're driving in Cedar Park, or if you're driving in Georgetown for that matter. So that can be a bit of an annoyance if you need to get to some place on the opposite end of the greater Austin area. That can be an hour of your time if it's that dramatic, right? Now, where it's a good thing is a lot of things are new. A lot of things are in development. And that's something that, for example, when I lived in Los Angeles for a little while, I was not used to that. Everything there was kind of old, or smushed together. And in a state like Texas, even if it's Austin, things are going to be newer and more spread out. So you're going to find a brand new grocery store. You're going to see schools being built over and over and over. When I was in my high school, it was only just a few years old at the time, and then they kept building new ones. So you're going to see that. You're going to see new home communities, whether they're master planned or something a bit more basic. It is much easier to find a new construction home in a place where, outside of where it's either suburban or urban, it's so rural and spread out. And so that's something that you're going to find. Another aspect, though, where it might be a bad thing is, let's say you're going to Bastrop, Texas. Have you ever heard of it? Probably not, because it's kind of one of those suburbs of Austin, if you will, that you only know if you're from here or if you've been doing some good homework. Let's say you want to move to Bastrop, Texas, and you choose Bastrop because it's 30-ish minutes from downtown Austin, and it's a cool, calm, cute little town, and you want to raise your family there. Well, a downside to the development due to the size of the greater Austin area is that all of a sudden they've built the Giga Tesla factory right outside of Bastrop. And so what does that mean? You're going to have all of these people who are going to work for Tesla probably relocating to Bastrop. And same case with, say, Taylor, Texas. You probably haven't heard of Taylor, Texas, because as it currently stands, Taylor, Texas is, a few neighborhoods in nothing but greenery, right? It's just like kind of in the middle of nowhere. Well, they're building a $4.5 billion Samsung plant right near Taylor, Texas. Why? Because there's so much space for it, and that's going to mean that homes are going to get more expensive. People are going to fill up Taylor, Texas, and it's going to be really developed. And that could be a good thing if you're wanting your small town to really bloom and blow up, or it could be a bad thing if you're just wanting to keep it a small town. That's kind of the curse of Austin, Texas, is that as soon as they run out of space somewhere because of its size, they're going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing, whether it's growing up, north, east, west, south, wherever they have the space, they're going to develop, which means it's going to get more expensive and that even more people are going to flock here. So it has its pros, it has its cons. Even another pro might be appreciation. Let's say you buy your house in Taylor, Texas for $400,000 and then they complete the Samsung plant and everyone's moving there. And in a few years, you've appreciated, made so much equity on that thing. So, there's things to consider, but a lot of people, when talking about Austin, Texas, are not really going to mention these up and coming boom towns and the good and bad that comes with them being a boomtown. So that's something to absolutely consider. Now, real quickly before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider clicking the like button as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. Up next, regarding what people don't really mention about Austin, Texas, would be the property taxes. And I'm smiling because I pretty much talk about these in every video. So this is for perhaps the one viewer who might be new to the channel who really needs to hear this, but I'll keep it brief. Not just in Austin, but in the state of Texas, you have much higher property tax rates than you're probably used to. In my experience, I've heard numbers like 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, depending on where people are coming from in the country. Well, in Texas and Austin, for that matter, you're going to see property tax rates of easily 2%, probably more commonly 2.5%. Very often 2.75 or 2.85%. And if you want a house, say, in a new area with a new grocery store and the nice schools and it's clean and it's quiet and it's pretty and shiny, that could easily look like 3% or above 3% for your property tax rate. And that can absolutely kind of seem like a second mortgage sometimes, especially if you're getting a house that's like $700,000 and then you lock it in at 2.85%, you're paying a lot of money just on property taxes. And some people might argue that it kind of balances out with the lack of state income tax, but still, it's not necessarily fun to have to pay that much to the tax man. So that's just something to keep in mind, whether you're looking at Austin, Texas specifically, or just the state of Texas itself. Now, lastly, on the subject of what people won't tell you about living in Austin, Texas, especially if they're trying to get you to move here, is going to be the subject of crime. And that's just the thing. I know that everywhere has crime. I know that a lot of people would argue that the crime in Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio is worse. And that might be true. And I acknowledge that crime statistics fluctuate anywhere in the country and that Austin is not unique in that sense. However, the crime in Austin, Texas has been increasing quite alarmingly, to the point where local Austinites have actually opened up a dialogue about it, because aggravated assaults are up, burglaries are up, murders are up. We have shootings now. I don't think we used to have shootings very much, if at all. Now there's shootings, like on 6th Street, where everyone goes to have fun. So it's not going to be to the sense where you're sleeping with one eye open, and this is more specific to the city limits. You're not really going to hear about this in Round Rock or Leander or Buda for that matter, but it is still a thing. And then with that, you also have increasing homelessness. That's also been a dialogue for a lot of local Austinites of what are we going to do about all of the tents that are just everywhere now. In addition to that, you also are going to have panhandlers. So between the crime, between the panhandlers, between the homelessness, Austin, Texas, in some ways is becoming less and less recognizable. I mean, people who've lived here since, say, 2000, or say since 1980, or even, long-time locals from the 60s in Austin's heyday would say that, oh yeah, I mean, yes, anything's going to change. Yes, of course, it's going to evolve. It's never going to be exactly the same. But just in the past probably 5 years alone, the tents, the homelessness, the panhandlers, the crime has really increased, but in a dramatic way. Because yes, it's going to increase anywhere. That's normal, but it's been not so normal in Austin, Texas. And so rest assured, if you're not going to live in the city, you probably really don't have much to worry about. But if you're going to be either working downtown, living downtown, or just spending a lot of your social free time downtown, it is something to consider. So there you have it. Those are a few things that we feel just aren't really talked about regarding Austin, Texas. It's not like they're just normal to bring up in conversation. And hopefully we've done our jobs of helping you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not Austin, Texas is right or wrong for you. But if it is, again, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. But again, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90. Reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. And again, on this channel, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Click the like button if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This has been Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.